Hey my fellow friends, it's Chris from Shughead Gaming, and here's my much delayed review for Hyperdash, developed and published by Triangle Factory. Hyperdash was previously in beta over on SideQuest, but is now out on the Oculus Store for the Quest, Quest 2, and PC headsets. This game also supports cross-buy. Hyperdash retails for an estimated price of $20, but of course that depends on your region. And as always, this was reviewed on a Quest 2 standalone, as well as linked with the PC. A SideQuest darling last year, Hyperdash is an addictive and slick multiplayer shooter that now releases officially, bringing the Quest and other PC headsets yet another quality shooter to add to their library. Looking to go head-to-head with Solaris Offworld Combat? Stick with me while I tear it down and see what all the fuss is about. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out my channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, make sure you hit that bell icon. And one last thing, I have another channel with Ryan from the VR Grid. We call it the Virtual Boys Podcast. And if you're looking for real conversations about the things that matter to VR gamers, then consider checking us out. The link is in the notes below. Let's kick things off with a look at graphics. Regardless of whether you play this on the Quest or PC, Hyperdash is a slick-looking title, with a graphical style that's sure to feel familiar to those who, like me, played the PSVR launch title Riggs. Hyperdash is a game that has been wisely designed to look sharp and run as well on the lower-powered Quest hardware as it does on the PC. Don't get me wrong, the PC version certainly comes off as a slicker and more polished experience with a sharper presentation. But seriously, this title running on a Quest 2 for all intents and purposes sacrifices very little and was likely designed for the Quest first and then simply upscaled to PC, a point driven home by the absence of any graphical settings on the PC version. Texture details are certainly at a minimum here, but the levels are all lit in a way that allows the game to feel less cartoony and more grounded in reality. Now, your robot body, maybe not so grounded in reality, feels ripped right out of Robo Recall and looks awesome in the headset, with a sharp and polished appearance that moved flawlessly during gameplay, never giving off that janky feel that so many full-body avatars do in VR. Each of the game's 6 levels goes for the same industrial concrete visual style, really only mixing things up with a splash of team colors here and there, and as such the game can certainly feel a bit samey and uninspired, with levels really having nothing in the way of personality or creativity to visually set them apart. However, unlike something like Solaris, where I wasn't even sure how many levels there were due to the similarity in level design here as it relates to architecture and layout in Hyperdash is extremely varied, as each level is very different from the next, with vastly different layouts, each custom designed for a given mode of gameplay. For example, the Waterway map, a map designed for the classic domination mode, plays like an almost tower defense map, with hold points in easily defendable spots on either side of the map, deep in each team's spawn point, with a third point dead center of the map and out in the open. A map which is contrasted greatly by the map Launchpad, a map designed specifically for the Overwatch-inspired payload mode, yet designed with Hyperdash's unique track-based control methods front and center. All in all, there really isn't much to complain about here in Hyperdash, as regardless of which headset you own, the game looks slick as shit and feels like a game that has had a lot of time and polish put into it. It could certainly use a little bit more personality, as it does feel rather generic, but it has good bones to grow on. Sound is up next.
Red takes C. Red team scores in 3, 2, 1.
Hyperdash's audio design could be simply titled Synthwave, Laser Blasts, and Squeakers, because outside of some nicely done 3D positional audio, that really is the takeaway here. The music side of things consists of a handful of non-offensive but forgettable synthwave tracks that simply do a fine job of giving you a beat to blast to. Gun sounds are again very competent and satisfying, but also very been there, done that, and not worth much more conversation than that. As for the squeaker part, yeah, for those gamers whose balls or ovaries have dropped, just know going in, this is where the Rec Room crowd is hanging out when it's not wrecking it up.
I'm going in with
You have been warned. And that brings us to gameplay. The Quest platform has been a gift that keeps on giving when it comes to competitive shooters. In the last year alone, Quest fans have been able to play such titles as Onward, Contractors, Solaris Offworld Combat, and of course Population 1. Already a hit over on SideQuest, Hyperdash officially hits the market and does so with a polish and balance of gameplay of a game ready to take a lot of the previously mentioned game's player bases, most notably that of Solaris, a title that launched unready and has since struggled to win an audience. Going for that same quick-paced, arena-based sci-fi shooter territory as Solaris, Hyperdash is to me simply a more compelling game. The key takeaway here is the dash aspect of the game, as what is essentially a teleport mechanic is the foundation of the game. Now yes, this is a full locomotion title, but walking is intentionally slow and running quickly burns off your valuable stamina meter. Now personally, I think the game moves a little too slow when walking, and running is essentially useless as it simply isn't worth the quick burst, only to be left essentially a sitting duck crawling around in walk mode. Hence, the dash move, a quick teleport move that uses up your stamina meter. Stamina does refill rather quickly, but it is how you execute jumps to navigate the maps that gives Hyperdash its addictive quality and rather steep learning curve. Sure, players run around levels, but it's in the usage of the game's plentiful grinding bars where skilled players will conserve stamina in order to attack and flank on their own, jump in and out of hiding at a moment's notice, and literally be in 3 places at once. Now, that's for skilled players. As for noobs like myself, this often resulted in badly utilized stamina and many situations where I simply teleported my exhausted stamina and face right into an opponent's gun. Now, teleporting in a VR shooter isn't exactly a new thing. In fact, it used to be a go-to crutch for VR developers in an attempt to limit VR sickness. And yeah, I get that same feel here at times, as like I mentioned, I think the traditional locomotion speed is irritatingly slow at times. However, that being said, it is what makes dashing an absolutely imperative gameplay mechanic and differentiates the game from other VR shooters. Outside of the movement mechanics, gameplay is solid arcade shooting with quick, plentiful deaths and fast respawns. Modes consists of the shooter staples Deathmatch, Payload, Domination, and Control Point, each with 2 corresponding maps, with the exception of Deathmatch, which has only 1. And while all 6 maps are well designed and fun, they do wear thin pretty quick, so I'm hoping to see an injection of some new maps in short order to help avoid map fatigue setting in prematurely. Maps are littered with 6 different weapon types, all of which can be dual-wielded and consist of the traditional auto pistol, SMG, sniper, shotgun, rocket launcher, shield, and of course the obligatory energy weapon with a charge blast. I felt that the sniper pistol was woefully underpowered, but other than that, all the weapons were fun to mix and match and balance very well. However, like the level selection, the gun selection here is a bit on the light side, a point that is made even more apparent by the lack of any secondary fire option, gun modifications, character classes, or for that matter, any character progression whatsoever outside of some basic cosmetic unlocks. As such, the game has to get by on its gameplay alone, which fortunately is fun, fluid, and deceptively deep despite its relatively light content offering. Single-player gameplay here consists of practice matches with bots, and while this can be fun for a short while, make no mistake, this is primarily an online competitive shooter in which team play and communication is key. Online hosted servers make joining an ongoing match quick and painless, and currently has a very active and loyal player base, with my only gripe being the lack of any option to join a match as a team. Meaning, when I was playing with friends, we all had to find a given server, make sure there was room for all of us, and then join independently. Often, we weren't placed in the same team, so we then had to attempt to switch teams all to get together. Not an ideal setup to be sure, and something that I think really needs to be addressed by the developer. Hyperdash requires the usage of 2 motion controllers. I actually found the default controller settings here horrible, as the button placements felt very unintuitive. Thankfully, in a move I wish more games would emulate, the controls here in Hyperdash are completely rebindable, allowing you to set them up the way you want them, and made playing the game awesome for me. Hyperdash can be played seated or standing, but is highly recommended to be played standing, as it's just that type of game. VR sickness could certainly be an issue here due to the quick movement and heavy emphasis on rail grinding to navigate the levels. However, that's never required, and the fact that teleportation is a fundamental movement mechanic, many should be just fine. In addition, there is also the ability to turn on blinders and click turning to mitigate any discomfort even further. And finally, that brings us to fun factor in my final review. Hyperdash is a slick and polished VR shooter that feels amazing to play, but lacks much in the way of an identity or gameplay depth outside of its deceptively deep movement system. I never played this game while it was in development over on SideQuest, and as such, I was actually really surprised at how much fun this game was, and quickly understood the hype surrounding the title. As you guys may know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a basis of buy it, burn it, or wait on it. So this is a definite buy, but with a caveat. A lot of gamers I met during my time in the game absolutely loved this game and were admittedly addicted to it. However, know going in that this is a game light on content, and as such, the replay value here is directly connected to your capacity to replay a handful of levels over and over again, simply for the fun of competition. Personally, I burn out quick on games like this unless there's some sort of gameplay loop and progression system for me to hold on to. As such, Hyperdash will never be more than a quick pick up and play experience for someone like me. That being said, what is here is really fun and incredibly polished, and will likely be a go-to shooter for those who aren't looking for a deep experience and instead just want some competitive fun with friends in VR. Anyways guys, that's it for me. If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, you guys know that deal. Hit the bell icon. As always guys, I'll catch you on my next video.